Will the House please come to order and members kindly take their seats? Good morning. The devotional today will be led by Representative John O'Brien of Tunbridge.
Good morning. Today's devotional is on twins. In the spirit of this address, I should say that again. Today's devotional is on twins. Why twins? It may be that I'm attracted to subjects that are everyday commonplace, excuse me, and yet remain wonderfully different. That's why, as a right-hander, I did a devotional on left-handers. And that's why, while I'm not a twin, and there are no twins in our family, there are a lot of twins in my life right now. Okay, so maybe all sheep farmers are a little obsessed with twins. And while I'm not a twin, I can say that I've delivered in my life about 100 twins of the woolly variety. Look around. Twins are everywhere. In this chamber, my seatmate is a mother of twins. The senior member from Randolph is a fraternal twin. And in House Ag, we have another mother of twins. Twins conceived, I should say, while she was still nursing her first child and after her husband had a vasectomy. I think that's miraculous. And I've heard, anecdotally, that a former member from a Bennington district who was an identical twin once had his brother dress up like him and vote in a roll call. I wonder what Mason's rules would say about that potentiality. First, some science. Identical twins. One fertilized egg splits into two. Non-identical twins, or fraternal twins. You have two eggs and they're both fertilized. Identical twins are not hereditary. Fraternal twins are, more often being passed down from the mother's side. On average, around the world, there are about 12 twins born for every 1,000 births. But that's the average. The Yoruba tribe in West Africa has about 50 twins for every 1,000 births, almost 4 times the average. Researchers ascribe some of this to hereditary genes, but also to a notable consumption of yams. After a little Googling into the phenomenon of twins, I was floored by the complexity of biology, specifically nature's variations. For example, in addition to identical twins and fraternal twins, there are conjoined twins, formerly known as Siamese twins, after Eng and Chang Baker, who were born in Thailand. There are polar twins, known as semi-identical twins, with 75% of the same genetic makeup. There are mirror twins, where the twins look like each other in the mirror, like this. And what's weird is they have different dominant hands, so one's a right-hander and one's a left-hander. There's also something called heteropaternal superfecundation, where twins are different ages. It's rare, but you can become pregnant when you're pregnant. There is also something called vanishing twins, where an embryo will divide and then either one of the embryos will die or be reabsorbed. So some of us in this chamber may have started life as a twin. What I found, though, after I worked through the Ripley's Believe It or Not stuff, was that twins are a story, and stories are powerful. Of course, we have famous twins like Romulus and Remus, or the Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen twins. But it's the twins I know I keep returning to. There's Sammy, my wife's paternal grandmother. Sammy was an identical twin. She was born during the Depression in the Upper Valley, before it was called the Upper Valley. Her parents felt that they couldn't afford 2 newborns at that point, and so they gave Sammy to another farm couple, distant relatives, who had no children. The 2 sisters would see each other at family reunions. And in house agriculture, food resiliency, and forestry, we have 2 witnesses in who look a lot alike. Keith and Alan are fraternal twins. They are both foresters. The result, Keith said, of parents telling them, stop watching TV and go play in the woods. After living in Chittenden County, Keith, who works for Forest Parks and Rec, recently returned to where he grew up in rural Waterbury. He now lives in a house right next to his brother. No sooner had he arrived than the phone rang. It was his brother. The brother he shared a uterus with for 9 months. And one twin said to the other, "Hey, stick your head out the window. There's a whippoorwill singing." Thank you.
Members, please rise as Paige Heidi Thompson of Reading leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Members, we have 3 House bills for introduction today. The first is House Bill 491, which is an act relating to setting the homestead property tax yields and the non-homestead property tax rate, introduced by the Committee on Ways and Means. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H491, an act relating to setting the homestead property tax yields and the non-homestead property tax rate.
Now the bill's been read the first time and is as a committee bill. It is placed on the calendar for notice on the next legislative day pursuant to House Rule 48. House Bill 492 is an act relating to animal cruelty crimes and penalties, introduced by Representative Krasnow of South Burlington. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H492, an act relating to animal cruelty crimes and penalties.
Now the bill's been read the first time and is referred to the Committee on Judiciary. And finally, House Bill 493 is an act relating to making appropriations for the support of government, introduced by the Committee on Appropriations. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H493, an act relating to making appropriations for the support of government.
Now the bill has been read the first time and affecting the revenue of the state. It is referred to the Committee on Ways and Means pursuant to House Rule 35A. Members, we also have a constitutional proposal for referral today. That is PR3, is a proposal to amend the Vermont Constitution to provide a right to collectively bargain. Please listen to the reading of the resolution by title only.
Proposal 3, proposal to amend the Constitution of the State of Vermont to provide that the citizens of the state have a right to collectively bargain.
Now the constitutional proposal is referred to the Committee on General and Housing pursuant to House Rule 51A. Members, we have 6 Senate bills for referral this morning. The first is Senate Bill 23, which is an act relating to the use of synthetic media in elections, introduced by Senator Hardy and others. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
S23, an act relating to the use of synthetic media in elections.
Now the bill's been read the first time and is referred to the Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs. Next is Senate Bill 27, which is an act relating to medical debt relief and excluding medical debt from credit reports, introduced by Senator Lyons and others. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
S27, an act relating to medical debt relief and excluding medical debt from credit reports.
Now the bill's been read the first time and is referred to the Committee on Health Care. Next is Senate Bill 51, which is an act relating to the Vermont Unpaid Caregiver Tax Credit, introduced by Senator Hardy and others. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
S51, an act relating to the Vermont Unpaid Caregiver Tax Credit.
Now the bill's been read the first time and is referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. Next is Senate Bill 59, which is an act relating to amendments to Vermont's open meeting law, introduced by Senator Hardy. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
S59, an act relating to amendments to Vermont's open meeting law.
Now the bill's been read the first time and is referred to the Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs. Next is Senate Bill 60, which is an act relating to establishing the Farm Security Special Fund to provide grants for farm losses due to weather conditions, introduced by Senator Hardy and others. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
S60, an act relating to establishing the Farm Security Special Fund to provide grants for farm losses due to weather conditions.
Now the bill's been read the first time and is referred to the Committee on Agriculture, Food Resiliency, and Forestry. Finally, Senate Bill 109 is an act relating to miscellaneous judiciary procedures, introduced by Senator Hashim. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
S109, an act relating to miscellaneous judiciary procedures.
Now the bill has been read the first time and is referred to the Committee on Judiciary. Members, we have received requests to read 4 House concurrent resolutions that the House and the Senate adopted pursuant to the consent calendar. The first is HCR 27, which is a House concurrent resolution honoring Joan W. Corser for her exemplary community service devising and leading the Halifax Senior Meal Program. Please listen to the reading of the resolution.
Whereas serving hot and nutritious meals to senior citizens benefits them both physically and emotionally by giving them high-quality nourishment and companionship, even for a brief period of time. And whereas a quarter of a century ago in the town of Halifax, Joan Corsier, an outstanding cook and deeply caring human being, identified the need for a senior meal program in the community. And whereas Joan Corsier established a senior meal service that provided recipients with both food and a sense of belonging to the community. And whereas she has performed multiple roles in this endeavor, including provisioning, preparing, and serving food, and Joan Corsier's superb cooking enhanced the program's quality and reputation. And whereas her devotion to this project has continued unabated, greatly benefiting the appreciative Halifax community. And whereas on March 21st, 2025, Joan Corsier is concluding her service in this unique and personally created position, and she will be celebrated at a festive thank you gathering. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that the General Assembly honors Joan W. Corsier for her exemplary community service, devising and leading the Halifax Senior Meal Program. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be directed to send a copy of this resolution to Joan Corsier.
Next is HCR 50, which is a House concurrent resolution recognizing the unique role of certified registered nurse anesthetists in the Vermont healthcare system. Please listen to the reading of the resolution.
Whereas nurses have provided anesthesia to patients for over 150 years, and whereas certified registered nurse anesthetists, CRNAs, also known as nurse anesthetists, were originally designated in 1956, and they are advanced practice registered nurses who are among the nation's most trusted healthcare professionals. And whereas nationally, nearly 74,000 CRNAs practice in every setting in which anesthesia is delivered, including traditional hospital surgical suites, obstetrical delivery rooms, ambulatory surgical centers, and at the offices of dentists, podiatrists, ophthalmologists, and pain management specialists. And whereas in publication L99-509, section 9320, Congress extended Medicare coverage to CRNA services. And whereas CRNAs are primary anesthesia providers in rural and underserved communities and for U.S. military personnel. And whereas, based on their formal education, field training, board certification, and state licensure, these healthcare professionals are qualified to make independent judgments regarding a broad scope of anesthesia care. And whereas CRNAs are trusted anesthesia experts, caring for patients safely and compassionately, delivering specialized, cost-effective care to all patients, from newborns to seniors, for every type of procedure in all kinds of facilities. And whereas, in addition to anesthesia care, CRNAs are qualified to address the unique healthcare challenges of some of our sickest patients, including veterans. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that the General Assembly recognizes the unique role of certified registered nurse anesthetists in the Vermont healthcare system. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be directed to send a copy of this resolution to the Vermont Association of Nurse Anesthetists.
Next is HCR 57, which is a House concurrent resolution recognizing March 25th, 2025 as National Medal of Honor Day in Vermont. Please listen to the reading of the resolution.
Whereas on December 21st, 1861, President Abraham Lincoln signed Public Resolution 82, the original Medal of Honor legislation, providing for a Navy Medal of Valor, which Senator James W. Grimes of Iowa had introduced. And in 1862, President Abraham Lincoln extended its eligibility to U.S. Army personnel. And whereas the first recipients of the Medal of Honor were a group of soldiers known as Andrews Raiders, who led a daunting mission to cross Confederate lines and steal a train, and 6 of those soldiers were honored on March 25th, 1863. And whereas during the Civil War, approximately 60 Vermonters were Medal of Honor recipients. And whereas the most unusual recipient was Willie Johnston, a young resident of the Northeast Kingdom community of Salem, now Derby, who despite being only 11 years of age when he enlisted, was accepted as the drummer in Company D of the 3rd Vermont Volunteer Infantry Regiment. And whereas during the 1862 Peninsula Campaign, when Union forces failed to invade the Confederate capital of Richmond, Virginia, and were forced to flee down the Virginia Peninsula, young Johnston proved to be the only drummer in his division to retain his instrument through the harrowing ordeal. And whereas on September 16th, 1863, when Willie Johnston was only 13 years of age, U.S. Secretary of War Edwin Stanton presented him with this special medal, and he remains the youngest recipient to this day. And whereas other Vermonters have been awarded the Medal of Honor for their military valor, including during the Indian Wars, 1, the Philippines Campaign, 1, interim periods, 2, World War II, 3, and the Vietnam War, 1. And whereas Congress established National Medal of Honor Day, which was first observed in 1991 to foster public appreciation and recognition of Medal of Honor recipients. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that the General Assembly recognizes March 25th, 2025 as National Medal of Honor Day in Vermont. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be directed to provide a copy of this resolution to the Green Mountain-based submarine veterans, to Robert Burke, Director of the Vermont Office of Veterans Affairs, and to Richard Lawrence, the President of the Vermont National Guard Library and Museum.
And finally, HCR 60 is a House concurrent resolution designating March 25th, 2025 as Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Day at the State House. Please listen to the reading of the resolution.
Whereas all Vermonters, regardless of any disability they may have, desire to receive the highest attainable quality of health care, including support services for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And whereas Section 1 of the Developmental Disabilities Act, 1996, Acts and Resolves number 174, codified as 18 VSA Section 8721, provides that individuals with a developmental disability are entitled to a safe living environment, respect and dignity, residency in a home of their choice, the opportunity to make life-affecting decisions, attend neighborhood schools, be employed, and participate in activities subject to the provisions of federal special education laws, and to have access to broadly available community support and services. And whereas individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities seek access to the necessary resources to lead full, independent, and dignified lives within the community. And they expect that all of these services will be delivered with the same degree of expertise and financial support as equivalent services for those who do not live with an intellectual or developmental disability. And whereas today, March 25th, 2025, individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their advocates are visiting the State House to inform the General Assembly of their concerns regarding the provision of these state services that are critical to their health and well-being. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that the General Assembly designates March 25th, 2025 as Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Day at the State House. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be directed to send a copy of this resolution to the intellectual and developmental disabilities advocacy organizations present today at the State House.
Are there any announcements? Member from Waterbury.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. We just barely heard a resolution honoring individuals with developmental and intellectual disabilities here. And 32 years ago, Vermont closed its only state institution for people with developmental disabilities, the Brandon Training School. And we did that because individuals who are living there deserve the right to live in our communities, to be participating members and citizens within the communities from which they came or other communities in Vermont. And frankly, it was a happy accident that I happened into a career devoted to people with disabilities for more decades than I really care to admit at this point in time. But the folks that we honor today are active members in our communities. They work in our communities, they volunteer in all sorts of places. They are people who speak up for themselves. They're supported by their families, and they are provided the support that they need to be active, vibrant members of their communities by Vermont Care Partners, which represents the designated and specialized service agencies. We have a number of folks in the House today, and I hope that the Speaker and all the members will welcome them today. They're sitting in the balcony.
Will the guest and the member from Waterbury please rise and be recognized? Member from Whitingham.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We also heard a resolution honoring Joan Corser for her 25 years of service to the town of Halifax. Joan Corser is a longtime resident of Halifax. Her generosity and joy of cooking has been instrumental in bringing the people of Halifax together through her community meals. Back in 2000, Senior Solutions heard about Joan's community dinners and approached her about offering monthly senior meals for the community. For 25 years, she served these meals, which have become a highlight of the monthly calendar. In an era where loneliness, isolation, and mental health struggles are on the rise, particularly with our area seniors, building community while ensuring that people are well fed and can enjoy a good neighborly conversation is imperative. The dedicated volunteers like Joan make this possible. So will you all give Joan a round of applause, who's watching online, for her 25 years of service to Vermont seniors and to the Vermonters that keep our seniors fed.
Will the guest and member from Whitingham please rise and be recognized? Member from Bristol.
Madam Speaker, my brain loves science, and so it's no surprise that I ended up in a career in healthcare, which is fortunately based on science. And I love science so much that in a recent procedure that involved anesthesia, they had difficulty quieting my science mind, and I just wanted to know what they were doing all the time during the procedure, so much so that when in the recovery room, the surgeon, who's a colleague, made a point of telling me, next time you have a procedure, tell them you need the maximum amount of sedation. So the next procedure, I said that to the anesthetist, and they said, well, I do have to keep you breathing. So I think it's a humorous example, but a real example of how closely anesthetists, and in this case, you heard the resolution today recognizing certified registered nurse anesthetists, and they are highly skilled, especially at understanding each person's unique needs. And they're also some of the first people to hear the goofy things that you say when you wake up. Today, in the House, we have a couple representatives from Vermont's Certified Registered Nurse Anesthetists, Tennille Critchlow and David Kaplan. And they represent this group that I've been talking about and the care that they provide, which is safe, cost-effective. They are doctorally prepared, who practice independently in 2 of Vermont's critical access hospitals. As leaders in the Vermont Association of Nurse Anesthetists, they are here to talk with legislators about nurse anesthesia practice. So please welcome them, and please do find them and ask them questions.
Will the guest of the member from Bristol please rise and be recognized? Member from Milton.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. The Medal of Honor was established and signed into law, as we heard earlier, by Abraham Lincoln on December 21st of 1861. The first Medal of Honor was presented on March 25th of 1863 during the Civil War. There have been over 40 million members that have served in the armed services of the United States, and only 3,547 Medals of Honor presented to individuals. That is less than 90 per 1 million, having met the high standard requirements, and many of them at the time at the very loss of their individual lives. It was best said again by President Abraham Lincoln in his Gettysburg Address, that giving one's life in battle was giving the last full measure of devotion. Vermont has a distinct honor of having over 60 of those medals credited to members that joined the armed services in Vermont. Vermont has the youngest individual, again, as we heard earlier, to receive the Medal of Honor at the age of 13 years, William Willie Johnston from Salem, which is now Derby, Vermont. In addition, we lay claim to the only enlisted and first submariner to be bestowed the Medal of Honor, torpedoman Henry Brough from Grand Isle, who we honored last year on the 100th anniversary commemoration of that awarding of the medal by President Calvin Coolidge, one of our own. On November 15th of 1990, President George H.W. Bush signed into law designating March 25th of each year as Medal of Honor Day. We gather here today on the 25th of March, National Medal of Honor Day, to honor the Vermonters that have been so recognized for their valor and call of duty above and beyond the expectations of duty. There is a display set up in the cafeteria if you're so inclined to take a look at it, and a commemorative cake out there. I don't know if they're ready for you to dig into it, but they'll tell you. Madam Speaker, I'd like to recognize some individuals who are here to commemorate this important day with us. The Green Mountain Submarine Veterans of Vermont, members of the Coast Guard from Coast Guard Station Burlington, Mr. Robert Burke of the Vermont Office of Veterans Affairs, also retired Navy officer, former member and retired Navy officer Albert Perry, and most importantly, wife Marcia with him, Steve and Deborah Martin, commissioning committee members for the USS Vermont, Gary Freimeyer, president of the USS Vermont Support Group, and members of the Vermont Army and Air National Guard, and any others that I may have missed. Madam Speaker, I'd ask we give them a warm welcome.
Will the guest of the member from Milton and former member please rise and be recognized? Member from Lowell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this morning we have the 7th and 8th grade from the New Hope Christian School in Irisburg, and they are accompanied by teacher Mr. Warner and a parent, Mr. Wright. Please give them a warm welcome.
Will the guest of the member from Stowe, Lowell, please rise and be recognized? Member from Burlington.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today seems to be Legislative Career Day. So as a social worker, I'm particularly proud to introduce a group that is here organized by the NASW, which is the Professional Association for all social workers, with NASW Vermont as its local chapter. Social workers are in a multitude of settings: schools, hospitals, primary care, child and elder welfare, hospice, criminal justice, employee assistance, universities, research, community organizing, disability rights, and elected office. Social workers work to reduce the barriers faced by people trying to meet their basic needs and live their most productive and successful lives possible. So with us today, we have a great group of representatives from NASW, including BSW students from Castleton and Champlain College, and UVM BSW students, as well as some MSW students from UVM. They are an enthusiastic bunch. They have the card room today. I hope people will have a chance to speak with them, and they are seated in the balcony and the gallery, and I hope the body will welcome them.
Will the guest of the member from Burlington please rise and be recognized? Member from Cambridge.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A reminder that the Rural Caucus will be meeting tomorrow morning from 8 to 8:45 in room 10 and on Zoom. All are welcome.
Member from Derby.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today in the gallery is a constituent of mine, also here with the New Hope Bible School. But probably more importantly, she served in these chambers for 16 years. I'd like to have the House give her a warm round of welcome to Representative retired Nancy Sheltra. Thank you.
Will the former member please rise and be recognized? Member from Swanton.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. Today we are joined by students from Missisquoi Valley Union High School, students from Franklin, Highgate, and Swanton. They're enrolled in a college civics class that with Community College of Vermont and Missisquoi Valley, made possible through Act 77 passed here in the legislature. The students are Kaylee Renadat, Nolan Marchessault, Ava Leach, Isaac Greenwood, Paige Greenwood, Dylan Moulton, Grady Martin, Isabella LaRush, Macy Hemingway, and Logan Kerwin, along with their teacher, Miss Urban. Madam Speaker, please welcome these Thunderbirds to the speakers and the People's House.
Will the guest of the member from Swanton please rise and be recognized? Member from Bennington.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, I have two messages this morning, or announcements. First of all, in the gallery, I have a member of our Bennington Select Board who has come all the way from Bennington to be part of the military reading this morning. His name is Clark Adams, and he's sitting in the back of the chamber. If you would all welcome him, would be great.
Will the guest member from Bennington please rise and be recognized?
Thank you again, Madam Speaker. Last week, all of you received from me an invitation in your mailboxes, and I know we're not supposed to use props, but I wanted to, if some of you didn't understand what it was. Today is a personal invitation from me for all of you to hopefully come and attend and be part of. Years ago when I came, and that was just, I'll say yesterday, even though I started here 29 years ago, we used to have activities that the legislative members would gather sometimes once a month or whatever, to do activities, whether it was raising money for an organization or doing something fun in the State House to meet their fellow legislators who we sometimes don't always get to know because we're in our committee rooms with our set committee members. So this is an opportunity for us all to get together, having something fun to do, hopefully you'll all enjoy. And I'm encouraging you all to be a part of it. I've had the extreme pleasure of working with the Sergeant of Arms, Agatha Kessler, as well as our curator, David Sheets, because you don't plan anything in the State House, as you probably already know, without passing it by those two wonderful people. So we're having an arts activity that we hope each of you will come, and you don't have to be an artist. Just come and bring an open mind to work and have fun with your fellow colleagues. It'll be right here in the cafeteria next Tuesday. It happens to be April Fool's Day, but this isn't an April Fool's joke. At the end of this process, we are going to come out with, each of you are going to have created something, and we kind of did it thinking of like a tree figure that will represent our family tree as all of us are members of this legislative body for 2025 and 2026. So I hope you'll enjoy me. I hope the member from Chittenden, my seatmate, appreciates that I didn't come to the floor last week to announce this because I didn't want to step on his toes with March Madness. But I'm sure he'll be updating us soon on what's going on there. But please, I hope you'll all come next week and enjoy and all have your fingerprint on this collage or piece of art we put together. So thank you.
Member from Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today, I have a guest with me in the State House, Brittany. Brittany is a fierce anti-poverty advocate, and I can attest a bundle of joy. Unfortunately, Brittany has become homeless after a no-cause eviction. She has experienced significant theft, leaving her with no resources. Brittany was born with a hole in her heart and has had 2 open heart surgeries. Her heart is at risk in cold weather. She's on every available housing wait list. If nothing changes, Brittany will once again have to figure out how to survive outside with her disabilities on April 1st. I invite fellow members to join me in welcoming this hardworking and wonderful Vermonter to the State House today.
Will the guest and member from Hartford please rise and be recognized? Are there any further announcements? Member from Waterbury.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We get to celebrate another person today. The latest and newest member from Milton is celebrating a birthday today. So let's wish her a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, member. Are there any further announcements? Member from Chittenden.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is good to be back in the chamber, and I appreciate my neighbors keeping my seat and desk clean and neat for me. On to basketball. Please be patient with me. This is very, very hard for me to say. The member from Waterbury is still in first place. Former member Terry McCaig is in second, and the member from Rutland City, Representative Howard, is in third. Holly from the Sergeant of Arms office is in fourth, and Ben from our own Legislative Council and Chrissy from the Senate Secretary's office round out the top 5. On the all-important team competition, which is playing for the coveted Jones's Donuts, again, this is hard. Human Services is in first place. Former members are in second, and the lobbyists are in third. It's obvious that members of House Appropriations have been a little distracted lately, which might explain we are not leading at this part of the contest. But the games continue and hope springs eternal. Thank you.
Are there any further announcements? Oh, member from Bennington.
May I speak a third time, Madam Speaker? I should have written notes like my neighbor here did for his introduction. I wanted to say that we have artists within this very chamber who may be helping next Tuesday, our own, and I know we're not supposed to use their names, so forgive me for not following protocol, but Molly Burke or Martin Lalonde, who is a beautiful artist who will help us along on this journey. So thank you.
Are there any further announcements? Member from Essex Junction.
Madam Speaker, I apologize. I'm not sure what my announcement is.
Caucuses.
Oh, now, yes. I'm sorry. It's Tuesday, Madam Speaker. The House Democratic Caucus will meet 10 minutes after the floor in room 11. Thank you.
Member from Poultney.
Madam Speaker, House Republicans will caucus 10 minutes following adjournment in room 10.
Member from Burlington.
Madam Speaker, the House Progressive Caucus will meet in room 44 at noon today.
Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, orders of the day. Members, we will begin with House Bill 342, which is an act relating to protecting the personal information of certain public servants. Member from Coventry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Your Committee on Commerce and Economic Development continues to work on H342, and I move that we delay action on 342 for 2 legislative days.
The member from Coventry moves to postpone action on House Bill 342 for 2 legislative days. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have postponed action on House Bill 342 until Thursday. Next is House Bill 474, which is an act relating to miscellaneous changes to election law. The bill was introduced by the Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs. The member from Charlotte, Representative Waters Evans, will speak for the committee. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
H474, an act relating to miscellaneous changes to election law.
Member from Charlotte.
Madam Speaker, H474 is a committee bill relating to elections. It addresses ranked choice voting, nominations, electric ballot return, write-in candidates, campaign finance, and recounts. The committee vote was 11-0. The goal of election-related legislations is always, in the end, to help Vermont voters. Your House Government Operations and Military Affairs Committee's intention with this bill is to increase voter participation, improve transparency and accountability at every opportunity, and to continue to hone our election systems so they are clear and accessible to voters. 474 is available on our committee page if you want to follow along the sections. Section 1 requires the Vermont Secretary of State's office to submit a written report about implementing ranked choice voting. It will include information about the feasibility of instituting such a system and how much it could cost. The report is due on January 15th, 2026. Section 2 is about what major political parties can do after the fact if they have failed to nominate a candidate for the primary. You will hear an amendment soon that changes this section. Section 3 proposes to change the day and time at which a major political party would declare that they failed to nominate a candidate. There will be amendment language regarding this section as well. Section 4 addresses what is commonly known as second bite of the apple candidacy. It changes existing statute to disallow candidates who have lost in a primary election to be nominated and appear on the general election ballot by any other party than the one for which they originally ran. Section 5 also addresses this issue and prevents a candidate from running as an independent candidate for that same office in that same election if they lost in a major party primary. These changes are intended to relieve voter confusion that arises from these situations. Two candidates running against each other for the same office in both a primary and then a general election is costly, confusing, and doesn't reflect the will of the voters. Section 6 requires another report from the Vermont Secretary of State's office. They love a report. Electronic ballot return is used in other states to allow voters with disabilities, military and overseas voters, voters in the address confidentiality program to participate in their home elections. The report will include information regarding cybersecurity and the various stakeholders' current ability to create and maintain such a system. This report is due on November 15th, 2026. Section 7 clarifies the definition of overseas voters to mean a person who lived in the United States and now lives outside the country. This change aligns our state definition with the federal definition of an overseas voter. Section 7 also expands the option to receive ballots electronically if they're participating in the office's Safe at Home program. The option to return them electronically does not exist yet, which is why we are having the Secretary of State's office study, as is outlined in Section 7. The current process relies on mail forwarding, which can take up to 2 weeks and might end up prohibiting a voter from participating in an election by not giving them enough time to return their ballot. So Section 8 asks the Secretary of State's office to collect voluntary demographic information so we can keep track of what kinds of candidates run for office. It leaves out of statute specific directions on how to collect that data so they can do it in a way that's effective and efficient for them. It also exempts demographic information from Public Records Act inquiries. Sections 10 through 13 are about write-in candidates. The bill, as passed out of your House Government Operations and Military Affairs Committee, sets a date of 2 weeks prior to the primary as a deadline for write-in candidates, declaring their candidacy for House races and above. An upcoming amendment will address this deadline. Requiring write-in candidates to file with the Secretary of State's office their intention to run as a write-in candidate is intended to help candidates and town clerks, not to stifle any ambitious politicians. Write-in nominations are a strong tradition in our state, and it's important that those votes cast are counted properly. Although people who are no longer alive or fictional characters who never existed in the first place are currently not counted, town clerks count every other write-in on Election Day. We heard testimony that filing in advance would allow candidates to flag different names or spellings that might appear on the ballot, but are still intended to count for the same person. This being Vermont, there are people in town named, perhaps, Jane Smith, but everyone calls her Cookie. So registering would enable Cookie Smith to be counted off of the ballot as well as Jane Smith. Giving clerks advance notice of these write-in campaigns will make it easier, less prone to error, and less time-consuming for town clerks, boards of civil authority, and other election volunteers to count votes on election nights. It also solved the problem of two candidates with the same name getting write-in votes, which has actually happened. 31 other states already have write-in registration in statute. These changes will apply to the General Assembly, county, statewide, and federal offices, as well as to presidential primaries, statewide primaries, and the general election. It is important to note that they do not apply to local elections, only rep and above, not local elections. Sections 13 through 17 make changes to campaign finance registration and reporting. Existing statute doesn't require candidates to register with the Secretary of State's office unless they've raised $500 in campaign funds. The change in Section 13 requires all candidates to register. There is an amendment that will be in front of you shortly that addresses a part of this section that's about campaign bank accounts. Now we're on Section 15. In Sections 15 through 17, the phrase independent expenditure-only political committees is replaced with public question campaigns. This is because there are different campaign finance reporting requirements for the two entities, and the latter requires disclosure of the campaign's treasurer, which is important and valuable information for voters. Section 18 arose out of the resolution we passed earlier this year relating to the election in Bennington, where some voters received incorrect ballots for multiple elections after the 2020 census. This section requires town clerks and boards of civil authority in multiple legislative districts to audit their voter checklists and make sure that they're correct. The Secretary of State's office will provide training and assistance to the clerks and BCAs. Municipalities will provide written summaries of their audits to the Secretary of State's office, and the Secretary of State's office will then provide another report to the General Assembly by November 15th, 2025. Section 19 adds language to existing statute to clarify that when a candidate provides their list of potential vote counters, in the event of a recount, they must choose disinterested individuals. This means they can't be a relative or subordinate of the candidate, or they can't share a direct financial interest. And now I'm going to yield to the member from Dorset for the next sections.
The member from Charlotte yields to the member from Dorset.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Section 20 is amended to make it explicit that a voter may not vote in multiple jurisdictions within the state, nor vote in more than one state for the same election. Section 21 is repealed as it is redundant. Section 22, subsection 6 modifies the definition of campaign to mean any organized or coordinated activity undertaken by one or more persons instead of two. Section 23, subcategory B, now allows the election officers to return defective petitions and signatures to a candidate within 2 business days from receipt instead of 72 hours. Section 24, we added subcategory F, stating, at the same time of filing the certificate of organization, the chair and secretary shall file with the Secretary of State a single machine-readable electronic document containing a list of the names and contact information in a format specified by the Secretary of State of the town and county committee members from those towns and counties who have organized pursuant to this chapter. Section 25, subcategory A1, when nominating Justice of the Peace, we inserted the 3rd Monday in July before each primary election. Town committees may meet in caucus and nominate candidates for Justice of the Peace. In subcategory E, the caucus shall file the statement by 5 p.m. of the 4th Monday in July before the primary election instead of the 3rd day following the primary election. Section 26, subsection 3A and B, remove the word random from post-election audit of vote tabulators. Section 27, subcategory A, allows the town clerk to begin processing absentee ballots 45 days prior to the election day instead of 30. Section 28 allows election officers to return defective petitions in a presidential primary to a candidate within 2 business days from the receipt instead of 72 hours, similar to Section 25 previously noted. Section 29, we added subcategory E, defining the word meeting. Meeting does not mean a gathering of the voters of a municipality for purposes of conducting an annual or special municipal meeting. We also added B for describing a public body to include the voters of a municipality at an annual or special municipal meeting. Section 30, subcategory A1, removes the word present, and since it has to do with Australian ballot voting, since those voters are not present. Section 31 was technical changes with subsection 2651D, collector of delinquent taxes, 2651E, the town clerk, and 2651F, municipal treasurer. Section 2 removed. A collector of delinquent taxes so appointed may be removed by the legislative body for just cause after notice and hearing. Replaced it with the appointment of a collector of delinquent taxes, town clerk, and municipal treasurer shall be for 1-year term respectively. Section 32, Australian ballot, Section H regarding hearings, Section 1, Whenever a municipality has voted to adopt the Australian ballot system of voting on any public question or budget, except the budget revote as provided in subsection C of this section, we added, or as otherwise specified in state law requiring the use of Australian ballot of system voting, but not expressly requiring an informational hearing, the legislative body shall hold a public informational hearing on the question by posting warnings at least 10 days in advance of the hearing in at least 2 public places within the municipality and in the town clerk's office. Subcategory 2681, nominations and petitions for municipal officers will now be due on the 5th Monday preceding the day of the election instead of the 6th. And in Section B, we removed he or she and replaced it with the candidate. Section 33 was fire districts and was only technical changes for clarifying language. Section 34, vacancy within the town offices is a technical changes only. Subsection 963, duties of select board, special meetings when a vacancy occurs. The select board will fill the vacancy by appointment, and we added, notwithstanding the provisions of this subsection, the select board shall not be required to fill a vacancy that occurs within 90 days before the date of the municipality's annual meeting. Section 35 for first constables, if elected, shall be the collector of taxes when a tax collector is not appointed or elected at the annual meeting. Section 36, constable powers, we added a vote to prohibit constables from exercising any law authority shall remain in effect until rescinded by the majority vote of the registered voters at the annual or special meeting duly warned for that purpose. I will now yield to the member from Charlotte.
The member from Dorset yields to the member from Charlotte.
Okay, Madam Speaker, one section left, Section 37, and it designates that the act takes effect on passage. Your Government Operations and Military Affairs Committee heard from the following witnesses: Legislative Counsel from the Office of Legislative Counsel, the Deputy Director of Legislative Affairs from Verified Voting, Secretary of State from the Secretary of State's Office, a former county clerk and auditor from the Utah Legislature, Legislative Counsel, the representative from Chittenden 17, the Deputy Secretary of State, representative from Chittenden 16, the clerk from Orange County, from the Vermont Municipal Clerks and Treasurers Association, and the Director of Elections and Campaign Finance from the Secretary of State's Office. With a strong 11-0 vote out of committee, we ask for the body's support.
And now the member from Dover, Representative Sibilia, and others offer an amendment that is printed in today's calendar. Member from Dover.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We are offering a small amendment, which members can find on page 1012 in today's calendar. Madam Speaker, according to Gallup, in 2024, there were 186 million registered voters in the United States. Of that 186 million, 46% total were registered as Democrats and Republicans, leaving 53% of all registered voters not registered as Democrats or Republicans. Madam Speaker, in Vermont, independent candidates file before the primary, 3 days. We need to file our petitions with the Secretary of State's office, not with the clerks. In Vermont, our primaries are for the parties. They serve to help our parties decide who their candidates will be. As an observer, and I think we have seen data over time, the primaries have also served to drive more extreme candidates to be brought to the general election, and also have served to further partisan divide. Nonetheless, the primaries are for the parties to choose their candidates. Madam Speaker, in Vermont right now, the deadlines for access to the general election ballot are also for the parties. And that is not right. Major parties have 17 days past the primaries to nominate candidates, a total of 17 days, including, I believe it's 10 days to nominate candidates if they failed to during the primaries, or an additional 7 days, I may have those backwards, for withdrawn candidates, if they have a withdrawn candidate, to nominate someone else. So the parties have 17 days past the primary to make sure that they have candidates that are appropriate. Madam Speaker, regular folks may look at the results of the primaries and what the parties are presenting and say, wow, those are some extreme candidates. Maybe I should run. Or maybe it's not extreme candidates, maybe it's just like, wow, that is not fantastic. And so maybe we would like to put somebody else up, or I would like to run, just like the parties have the opportunity to fill a seat. And so this amendment, very simply, moves the filing deadline for independent candidates to 14 days past the primary. And I will leave it there for the moment, and we would like your support.
Member from Charlotte.
Madam Speaker, the House Government Operations and Military Affairs Committee would like to thank the member for the amendment. After some testimony and discussion, we found it unfavorable with a straw poll 11-0, and we request your support in voting no for this amendment.
So the question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Dover and others? Are you ready for the question? If so, member from Dover.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So again, the elections are not for the parties. The primaries are for the parties. And so I think we need to stand with the voters here and not the parties here, and give the voters, in addition, that are not partisan, or candidates that are not partisan, the same opportunity that the parties have past the primary. And I'd like to see division on this vote.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Dover and others? Are you ready for the question? Member from Northfield.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I heard some passing references in conversations about the fact that, well, independent candidates should be held to the same standards as any other candidate, the candidates from the major parties. And that fails to recognize that they are not the same because they are not running within a party and not seeking the party's endorsement of them as a candidate representing that party. To be equivalent to other candidates means being able to enter the race at the same time, up to the same time limit as a major party can nominate someone to join the general election race. So to place them in an equivalent candidate position, as they were until just a few years back when this was changed, would be to support this amendment, and I would ask the body's support as well.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Dover and others? Are you ready for the question? Member from Vergennes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to clarify some information quickly. On the days after the primary for nomination, it's 6 days post-primary for the party. There is a 10-day caveat if the candidate withdraws after the primary. So I just wanted to clarify those numbers. I do want to speak to the amount of testimony that we took on this proposal. We met on 2 separate occasions as a committee and heard a range of testimony on what it would look like to implement this, and with various aspects of mail-out ballots that need to be arranged, modified, and sent to voters. The timeline proposed, it did not make sense from a workload perspective and the timeline for getting those ballots out to voters. We even entertained a shorter window, and that was also deemed to be problematic for getting mail-out ballots out to voters. So we did take extensive testimony on this. One of the reasons we suspended action on this measure. And I would just ask the body to support the committee work with our 11-0 vote on finding this unfavorable.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Dover and others? Member from Dover.
Madam Speaker, I would like to interrogate the chair of the Government Operations Committee. I'm not sure if that is in order. If not, I would like to interrogate the presenter of the underlying bill.
The member from Vergennes is interrogated if he so chooses.
Madam Speaker, back to clarifying timelines. I just want to make sure I am looking at the right dates here. So the last day for a candidate to withdraw is 10 days after the primary. Is that right, Madam Speaker?
My understanding is it's 10 days if the candidate withdraws for the top party to nominate.
Madam Speaker, my understanding in looking at the elections 2024 elections milestones chart that was presented to the Government Operations Committee is that the last day for a candidate to withdraw is 10 days after the primary. Is that correct?
I don't have that specific information you're citing in front of me. If I could call for a recess to verify with council, that would be appreciated.
The House will stand in recess for a couple minutes. Will the House please come to order and members kindly take their seats? Will the House please come to order? Member from Virgins.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you for the recess. Apologies to the member from Dover. I reversed the flow on the days. It is 10 days for the candidate to withdraw and then another 6-7 days to nominate. So that is a 17-day timeline.
Madam Speaker, I just want to clarify. I think I heard the member just say it was another 6 or 7 days. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, it's 17 days total.
So that would be 7 days, Madam Speaker.
Correct.
Right, so 10 days post-primary, candidates can withdraw, and 7 days after that withdrawal, major parties can replace their candidates. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, that's 17 days, as I noted earlier, past the primary for the parties to nominate their candidates. Madam Speaker, I listened to some of the testimony from the Secretary of State's office, and I heard the chair of the Government Operations Committee bring forward this morning the rationale that was provided for the opposition to moving independent filing candidate deadlines to 14 days past. And that was looking at the workload perspective for the Secretary of State's office and finding that to be problematic. I have also, I understand that we've moved and accelerated these deadlines forward to make sure that we can get mail-in ballots to our military personnel serving overseas, which is critically important. It's critically important that the will of voters actually make its way onto our general election ballots. And so I'm disappointed, actually, to hear that it's too much work to do this. You know, it's a lot of work for the independent candidates who are not supported by choice through parties. So I think we can, you know, it's a small group, smaller than the partisan groups, and I respectfully ask that members support this amendment.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Dover and others? Member from Northfield.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm hearing a lot of references to candidates. And I think elections law are fundamentally about voters and equality of access to candidates by voters. There's a fundamental inequity that deprives unaffiliated voters from having the equal opportunity as the major parties, the equal timeline opportunity for nominating a candidate or encouraging a candidate to run who more reflects their values after the major parties have voted in the primary, but can still have the opportunity to nominate. The only way to make it equitable for voters in their choices is to align this timeline and to support this amendment. So I would urge members to consider the rights of voter choice when considering this amendment.
Member from Burlington.
Madam Speaker, may I interrogate the presenter of the underlying bill?
The member from Charlotte is interrogated.
Madam Speaker, am I hearing correctly that the primary reason the committee voted no is due to administrative burden?
Madam Speaker, we heard testimony from the Secretary of State's office that outlined the procedure for collecting and verifying the signatures for independent candidates and the workload that places on the Secretary of State's office at a very busy time for them without additional staff. They testified that they would not be able to comply with a 2-week later date without jeopardizing and putting at risk their obligations to comply with the universal ballot by mail law and the law that requires them to comply with the Uniformed and Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act, which requires sending ballots to overseas and military voters. I would probably not characterize it as administrative, but more like these elections take place on a tight timeline. And given that the current system seems to be working and that independent candidates do have an opportunity to file at any point in time before the primaries and withdraw their application should they decide that the candidates who were successful in the primary were satisfactory to them, that it gives ample opportunity for independent candidates to still file while complying with election laws that it's necessary for the Secretary of State's office to do.
Madam Speaker, I'm still struggling to understand how much of a difference it makes on the workload for a few more candidates to file afterwards.
Madam Speaker, a few is not how many there are. So it varies, which is part of the unpredictable nature of it is what is partially of a concern for the Secretary of State's office. In 2020, there were 70 independent candidates that needed to be verified. We heard testimony from them that there were 23 in 2024 and 49 in 2022. This variable number, and it's not just a few, it can be significant, is the reason why they need some flexibility, I believe.
Madam Speaker, just to put it in context, if there were 70 independent candidates, how many affiliated candidates were in the year that there were 70?
Madam Speaker, I do not know.
Okay, it's fair enough. I guess the reason I asked that is because if there was 1,000, then 70 is a few, in my opinion. Madam Speaker, I have more questions, but I don't want to take up more time now. Thank you, member. What I would say is there seems to be a trend when we work on elections law to narrowing the choices for voters, to narrowing people's opportunity to participate in our elections when it comes to party affiliation especially. And it's concerning to me that we would say that the burden of candidates filing after election is any more than them filing before and then withdrawing their names and creating paperwork and creating confusion. I think we heard earlier that the voters get confused. I think what's going to be confusing to voters is that we squabble about elections law when our nation and our state is in such a crisis and when we see democracy threatened on the federal level. Thank you.
Member from Dorset.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would just like to add that in the 21 years of my being a town clerk, I've never once seen a primary or candidate withdraw. So I think this is kind of a minute point.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Dover and others? Are you ready for the question? If so, member from St. Albans Town.
Madam Speaker, can I clarify? We're voting on the amendment now and not on the underlying bill.
We are voting on the amendment and a division has been requested for the vote.
Thank you.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Dover and others? Member from Essex Junction.
Member, when the vote is taken, Madam Speaker, when the vote is taken, I'd like it taken by roll.
The member from Essex Junction requests that when the vote is taken, it be taken by roll. The member sustained. The member is sustained. When the vote is taken, it will be taken by roll. The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Dover and others? Are you ready for the question? Will the House please come to order? Are you ready for the question? If so, will the clerk please call the roll?
Arsenault Williston.
2 minutes. Will the House please come to order and members kindly take their seats? Will the House please come to order? I would like to remind members that we are in the middle of a roll call vote. Members and guests are prohibited from using computers, phones, or any type of an electronic device. Please refrain from the passing of notes and conversation during a roll call. And when the clerk calls your name, please answer in a loud and clear voice so the clerk can accurately record your votes. The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Dover and others? Will the clerk please continue to call the roll?
Austin of Colchester. Bailey of Hyde Park. Bartholomew of Heartland. Bartley of Fairfax. Rebecca of Winooski. Byrong of Virgins. Bishop of Colchester. Black of Essex. Bloomley of Burlington. Boslin of Westminster. Bosch of Clarendon. Boonton of Berry City. Boyden of Cambridge. Brady of Williston. Brannigan of Georgia. Brown of Richmond. Burdett of West Rutland. Burke of Brattleboro.
No.
Burkhardt of South Burlington. Burrows of West Windsor. Burt of Cabot. Campbell of St. Johnsbury. Canfield of Fairhaven. Terrace Duncan of Whitingham. Casey Montpelier. Casey Hubbardton. Chapin of East Montpelier. Charlton of Chester. Christie of Hartford. Chino of Burlington. Coffin of Cavendish. Cole of Hartford. Conlon of Cornwall. Cooper Pownell. Corcoran of Bennington. Cordes of Bristol. Critchlow of Colchester. Damar of Venusburg. Dickinson of St. Albans Town. Dobrovich of Williamstown. Dodge of Essex. Dolan of Essex Junction. Dolgan of St. Johnsbury. Donahue of Northfield. Duke of Burlington. Durfee of Shaftesbury. Eastis of Guilford. Emmons of Springfield. Feltis of Linden. Calfetti of Berrytown. Garifano of Essex. Goldman of Rockingham. Goodnow of Brattleboro. Ghostland of Northfield. Granting of Jericho. Greer of Bennington. Raguar of Fairfield. Hengo of Berkshire. Harpel of Glover. Harrison of Chittenden. Harvey of Castleton. Hedrick of Burlington. Higley of Lowell. Holcomb of Norwich. Hooper of Randolph. Hooper of Burlington. Houghton of Essex Junction. Hart of Rutland City. Howland of Rutland Town. Hunter of Manchester. James of Manchester. Kosenska of Burke. Keyser of Rutland City. Kimball Woodstock. Klepner of Burlington. Kornheiser of Brattleboro. Krasnow, South Burlington. Labor Morgan. Labor Morgan. Lally of Shelburne. Lalone of South Burlington. Lamont of Morristown. LaRush of Franklin. LaRush of Franklin. Thank you. Lipsky of Stowe. Logan of Burlington. Long of Newfane. Luna of St. Albans City. McGuire of Rutland City. Malaya of Pittsford. Marcotte of Coventry. Maslin of Thetford. McCann of Montpelier. McCoy of Pulteney. McFawn of Berrytown. McGill of Bridport. McLiss of Milton. Mahali of Calais. Minier of South Burlington. Morganella Milton. Morgan Emma Milton. Morris Springfield. Morrissey Bennington. Morrow Weston. Rowikia Putney. Nelson of Derby. Nielsen of Brandon. Niagara of Bennington. North of Ferrisburg. Noyes of Wolcott. Nugent of South Burlington. O'Brien of Tunbridge. Odie Burlington. Oliver of Sheldon. Olson of Starksboro. Page of Newport City. Parsons of Newberry. Pezzo of Colchester. Pintonald of Dorset. Pouch of Heinsberg. Powers of Waterford. Priestley of Bradford. Pritchard of Pollitt. Quimby of Linden. Rachelson of Burlington. Sackowitz of Randolph. Shy of Middlebury. Sheldon of Middlebury. Sibilia of Dover. Southworth of Walden. Squirrel of Underhill. Steady of Milton. Stevens of Waterbury. Stone of Burlington. Supernant of Barnard. I'm sorry, Supernant of Barnard. Thank you. Sweeney of Shelburne. Taglavia Corinth. Taylor Milton. Tomlinson of Winooski. Toof of St. Albans Town. Tory Moortown. Walker Swanton. Waza City. Waters Evans of Charlotte. Wells of Brownington. White of Waitsfield. White of Bethel. Winter of Ludlow. Wood of Waterbury. Yakavoni Morristown. Chapin East Montpelier. Christie of Hartford. McGuire of Rutland City. Rowikia of Putney. Oliver of Sheldon. Walker of Swanton. And Wells of Brownington.
For purpose of explanation, member from Burlington.
Madam Speaker, I'm voting yes because our current system of low turnout primaries and fusion candidates increases campaign tactics that can undermine the representation of the majority of voters.
Member from Berkshire.
May I explain my vote?
You may.
I was hopeful that an agreeable date could have been negotiated ahead of this vote, but it was not.
Member from Fairfield.
May I explain my vote?
You may.
I agree with the principle, but not the deadline chosen.
Members, please listen to the results of your vote. Those voting yes, 36. Those voting no, 107. The nays have it, and you have declined to amend the bill. Now the member from Poultney, Representative McCoy and others, offers an amendment that the first assistant clerk emailed to members yesterday at 5:05 p.m. This amendment is also posted on the House Overview webpage, and paper copies are available at the main table. Will the House please come to order? Member from Poultney.
Madam Speaker, the amendment sent to you yesterday by the clerk's office and offered by the member from St. Albans Town, the member from Lowell, and me proposes to remove sections 2 and 3, the sections that would have prohibited a major political party from nominating a candidate for a general election if that party failed to nominate a candidate during the primary election. The removal of these two sections would preserve current law as is. Sections 9 through 12 would alter the proposed deadline in H474 from a write-in candidate to file a consent of candidacy form to have their votes counted not later than 5 p.m. on the second Friday preceding the primary election, to a write-in candidate filing a separate form not later than 7 p.m. the day of election. It also includes an exception to this filing requirement so that a write-in candidate qualifies as a winner if the candidate otherwise received the requisite number of votes for that particular office. This keeps the proposed increased requirement of H474 for a write-in candidate to receive the same number of votes as a printed candidate in order to win a primary. In Section 13, the amendment proposes to alter the proposed time of registration and report filings from when a candidate accepts or expends any campaign fund to when a candidate expends funds. At the time of expending funds, the candidate would then register campaign banking and treasurer information, as well as file campaign finance reports. This amendment seeks to find a compromise with the Office of the Secretary of State, the Vermont Municipal Clerks and Treasurers Association, and offerers of this amendment. Our concern has been the disenfranchise of the voters in not recording their write-in votes. I believe this amendment strikes this balance. Thank you.
Member from Charlotte.
Madam Speaker, your House Government Operations and Military Affairs Committee would like to thank the members for their amendment and report that in a straw poll, after some discussion and testimony on this, we found it favorable, 11-0, and ask for your support in voting yes for this amendment.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Poultney and others? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have amended the bill. Now the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for that question? Member from St. Albans Town.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to interrogate the presenter of the bill, please.
A member from Charlotte is interrogated.
My analysis of this necessity of this bill was it was prompted by a failure of placing voters in the correct district. This can happen in a variety of ways. We could have a confusion between a P.O. box address or a residence address. We could have confusions of mailing addresses versus resident addresses. And we could just have confusion as to where people are based on the reapportionment. I think this has been going on for a while because I know it happened in my district after the reapportionment in 2010. There's also the role of the DMV in determining the district of the voter. After the 2002 election, there was a bill that was passed by Congress called Help Americans Vote Act, and the DMV was included in this, and people could register when registering their cars or their address at the DMV, registering for a license. In light of that, did you hear any testimony from anyone from the DMV or any of these other confusing situations as far as determining what district a voter is in?
Madam Speaker, we heard testimony. We did not hear testimony from the DMV regarding this bill.
Okay. What about discussion about post office boxes and mailing addresses versus resident addresses?
Madam Speaker, no. we did not hear testimony about post offices or mailing addresses.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to the member. Madam Speaker, over the years, I have gone around and talked to a lot of voters over the course of my district, sometimes in 3 towns, sometimes only in part of 1 town after redistricting. Many of them had registered to vote, or so they thought, through the DMV by getting their license, and then just discovering that in fact they weren't registered to vote, even though that was what the law accommodated. So I would try to register them into the regular registration so that just in case they would be able to vote in their new district in the community. I had an interesting thing happen to my family, my husband and I, when we went down to vote this fall at the town clerk's office, is that we were handed the wrong ballot. We were given Franklin 8 ballot rather than the Franklin 2 ballot. And this was because, apparently, in talking to the town clerk, we had used a mailing address that we'd used for many years, which is in Franklin 8's district, whereas we really live in Franklin 2's district. Now, I have lived in Franklin 2 at that residence address for 25 years. I've run for office. I've registered for office. I've gotten ballots in the mail. But somehow or other, when we walked in, we were given this other ballot. And in talking to the town clerk, she said, check your DMV address. Apparently, I had just renewed my license with an address that I had used for many years at an office that was in a different district. And suddenly I was now in Franklin 8, even though I was running and living in Franklin 2. So sometimes the DMV actually does send out notices to town clerks and updates addresses. In this particular case, they picked the wrong address. I went home and I went and re-registered online for my address at the DMV. That was the solution that the town clerk and I came to, so that I would be registered where I live, and the address would get everything at that address from the DMV. But there's a lot of reasons why people get the wrong ballot. I mean, this is not an unusual case. I think it's fairly common. And there's a lot of other things in this bill, but I'm not sure that the committee really solved, Madam Speaker, the problem that we have with address notification, address location, and knowing where people are actually supposed to get their ballots. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question is, shall the bill be read a 3rd time? Member from St. Albans City.
Madam Speaker, may I interrogate the presenter of the bill?
The member from Charlotte is interrogated.
Madam Speaker, does H 474 as amended allow for fusion candidates?
Madam Speaker, it does.
Madam Speaker, does the fusion candidate need to file a consent form with another party, with multiple parties? And if so, is that permissible? I'm sorry.
Madam Speaker, this bill changes nothing relating to existing statute for fusion candidates.
So, Madam Speaker, just so I understand, so a candidate who has filed a consent form with one party affiliations votes, that candidate's name, were it to appear on another party's primary ballot, would be counted with that individual's name. Is that accurate?
I am not sure. I can check and report back to you, Madam Speaker, the 3rd reading tomorrow.
Okay, because the answer to that question on a de facto basis, I'm sorry. I'm told I'm breaking the rules. I apologize. Thank you.
The question is, shall the bill be read a 3rd time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and 3rd reading is ordered. Next is House Bill 483, which is an act relating to the expansion of income tax credits. Member from Woodstock.
Madam Speaker, I would move to commit H 483 to the Committee on Ways and Means for further consideration.
The member from Woodstock moves to commit House Bill 483 to the Committee on Ways and Means. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have committed House Bill 483 to the Committee on Ways and Means. Up next is House Bill 141, which is an act relating to fiscal, looking for a member, an act relating to fiscal year 2025 budget adjustments. Member from Essex Junction.
Madam Speaker, I move we move H141 to House Appropriations.
The member from Essex Junction moves that we commit House Bill 141 to the Committee on Appropriations. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have committed House Bill 141 to the Committee on Appropriations. Next, we'll turn to House Bill 10, which is an act relating to approval of the amendments to the Charter of the City of Barre. Please listen to the third reading of the bill.
H10, an act relating to approval of amendments to the Charter of the City of Barre.
The question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed the bill. Next is House Bill 319, which is an act relating to miscellaneous environmental subjects. Prior to third reading, the member from Randolph, Representative Sakowicz, offers an amendment to the bill that the first assistant clerk emailed to members at 9:19 this morning. The amendment also appears on the House Overview webpage, and paper copies are available at the main table. Member from Randolph.
Madam Speaker, you may recall that during my report on Friday, I noted there was a missing "or" in Section 9 of H 319 that would be addressed on third reading. The floor amendment distributed this morning by email and posted on the House Overview webpage makes this change. The amendment passed in committee on a straw poll vote of 10-0-1, and we respectfully request your support.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Randolph? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have amended the bill. Please listen to the third reading of the bill.
H319, an act relating to miscellaneous environmental subjects.
The question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed the bill. Up next is House Bill 321, which is an act relating to miscellaneous cannabis amendments. Please listen to the third reading of the bill.
H321, an act relating to miscellaneous cannabis amendments.
The question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed the bill. Up next is House Bill 484, which is an act relating to miscellaneous agricultural subjects. Please listen to the third reading of the bill.
H484, an act relating to miscellaneous agricultural subjects.
The question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed the bill. Next is House Bill 489, which is an act relating to fiscal year 2025 budget adjustments. Please listen to the third reading of the bill.
H 489, an act relating to fiscal year 2025 budget adjustments.
The question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed the bill. Up next is House Bill 237, which is an act relating to prescribing by doctoral level psychologist, member from Berry Town.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to make a motion that we postpone action on H237 until one legislative day.
The member from Berry Town moves that we postpone action on House Bill 237 for one legislative day. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have postponed action on House Bill 237 for one legislative day. Will the House please stand at ease for a moment?
Will the House please come to order? Now we'll take up House Bill 401, which is an act relating to exemptions for food manufacturing establishments. The bill was referred to the Committee on Agriculture, Food Resiliency, and Forestry, which recommends that the bill be amended as printed in today's calendar. The member from Cabot, Rep. Burt, will report for the committee. Affecting the revenue of the state, the bill was then referred to the Committee on Ways and Means, which recommends that the bill ought to pass when amended as recommended by the Committee on Agriculture, Food Resiliency, and Forestry. The member from Thetford, Rep. Maslin, will recommend for that committee. Please listen to the second reading of the bill. Reporting for the Committee on Agriculture, Food Resiliency, and Forestry, the member from Cabot.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you. H401, an act relating to exemptions for food manufacturing establishments, as passed by the House Committee on Agriculture, Food Resiliency, and Forestry, proposes to exempt a food manufacturing establishment with gross annual receipts of less than $30,000 from licensing fees. It further proposes to exempt from licensing requirements an individual manufacturing and selling bakery products from the individual's own home kitchen where the individual has gross annual receipts of less than $30,000. Section 1 outlines the intent of the bill, that Vermont enhance its food resiliency through increased supply and distribution of locally produced food products, that Vermonters have more access to the local food marketplace as both producers and consumers, that local food producers are able to meet the demand for Vermont-made food products from visitors to the state, that small-scale food producers, new business startups, and sole proprietors benefit from raising the limit of the existing licensing exemption for at-home bakery products to adjust for inflationary cost changes occurring since the initial statutory enactment, and that supply chain costs and inflationary considerations be addressed to bring risk management thresholds more in line with the economic conditions at the time of initial statutory enactment. Section 2 amends 18 VSA 4353. Existing statute sets licensure fees for food service establishments, which includes different fees for non-bakeries and bakeries. Subdivision 3A, non-bakeries, currently sets a $175 fee for gross annual incomes between $10,000 and $50,000. Gross annual incomes over $50,000 has a $275 fee. Current statute implies that there is no license or licensure fee for non-bakeries earning under $10,000 annually. H401 proposes gross annual incomes of non-bakeries over $30,000 pay a fee of $275. Non-bakeries earning $30,000 or less is broken into two categories depending on whether the non-bakery operates out of a home kitchen. The non-home kitchen fee is $175. Home kitchens are exempt from license and licensure fees. Subdivision 3B, bakeries. Currently, home bakeries pay a fee of $100, small commercial bakeries pay $200, and large commercial bakeries pay $350. The language in section 4358 states that the chapter does not apply to home-operated bakeries earning $6,500 a year or less, meaning that they are exempt from licensure and licensure fees. H401 proposes home bakeries with gross receipts over $30,000 pay a fee of $100. Small commercial bakeries pay $200, and large commercial bakeries pay $350. Bakeries earning $30,000 or less is broken into two categories, depending on whether the non-bakery operates out of a home kitchen. Non-home kitchen bakeries pay $50. Home kitchen bakeries are exempt from license and licensure fees. Section 3 amends 18 VSA 4358B to clarify that licensure and licensure fees do not apply to a food manufacturing establishment, both bakeries and non-bakeries, operating in a home kitchen whose average gross retail sales are less than or equal to $30,000 per year. The effective date of this bill is July 1st, 2025. The committee heard testimony from the following witnesses: the sponsor of the bill, Legislative Counsel from the Office of Legislative Counsel, Deputy Commissioner from the Vermont Department of Health, Fiscal Analyst from the Joint Fiscal Office, Legislative Director from Rural Vermont, Partner of Hoppy Valley Farm, Senior Environmental Health Program Manager. The bill was voted out of committee unanimously at 8-0-0, and we would be much obliged to garner your support.
Now recommending for the Committee on Ways and Means, the member from Thetford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Because the bill involves fees, the bill came to Ways and Means and we reviewed it fairly carefully. But I must tell you at the outset that normally what Ways and Means does is adjust fees up or down depending on recommendations. But in this case, we didn't change the amount of fees because what we dealt with was the threshold at which fees apply. As the member presenter of the bill said, the best way to track things that are happening, if the members want to do that, is to go to either our committee page or the JFO page and look for the fiscal note on this bill, where there is a table which explains fairly thoroughly in plain English the changes in fees and fee thresholds, probably no more thoroughly than the member who presented the bill could do that. There is one fee, one new fee, Madam Speaker, and I'll be with you in just a second. That is, there's a new fee of $50 for non-home bakeries with 30,000 or less in gross receipts. That is a new fee. But at the end of the day, Madam Speaker, the net change in revenue to the revenues of the state will be minimal. As I said, what we were doing in Ways and Means was changing the thresholds at which these fees apply, not the fees themselves. And as the member presenter of the bill said, basically this is an adjustment for inflation over time since these original fees were established. So, Madam Speaker, on the vote of 11-0-0, Ways and Means recommends the bill ought to pass. Thank you.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Agriculture, Food Resiliency, and Forestry? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have amended the bill. Now the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for that question? If so, All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and third reading is ordered. The final bill on our action calendar today is House Bill 481, which is an act relating to stormwater management. The bill was introduced by the Committee on Environment. The member from Burlington, Representative Logan, will speak for the committee. Affecting the revenue of the state, the bill was then referred to the Committee on Ways and Means, which recommends that the bill ought to pass. The member from Burlington, Rep. Odie, will recommend for that committee. Then, carrying an appropriation, the bill was referred to the Committee on Appropriations, which recommends that the bill ought to pass when amended as printed in today's calendar. The member from Underhill, Rep. Squirrel, will recommend for that committee. And will the body please stand at ease while we find the bill reporter? Please listen to the second reading of the bill. Reporting for the Committee on Environment, the member from Burlington.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Vermonters love Lake Champlain and depend on it for drinking water and recreational pursuits like fishing, swimming, and boating. Summer tourism, economic development, and property values are tied to its health and beauty. Too much phosphorus pollution is reaching Lake Champlain due to runoff from parking lots, roads and streets, lawns, wastewater treatment plants, logging roads, farm fields, and cropland, with additional contribution directly from riverbank and street bank erosion. Phosphorus is the primary driver of algal blooms in Lake Champlain affecting water quality, and Vermont contributes 69% of the total phosphorus load to Lake Champlain. Vermont's Clean Water Act, Act 64 of 2015, which includes 3-acre stormwater permitting, was adopted in response to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's requirement for a total maximum daily load, or TMDL, for phosphorus in Lake Champlain. Vermont is required to meet the TMDL by 2038. Additionally, the Act created a clean water surcharge on the property transfer tax set to sunset in 2039 that currently contributes 31% of the total funds in the Clean Water Fund. Vermont's Clean Water Service Delivery Act, Act 76 of 2019, mandated an annual appropriation of $50 to $60 million for clean water programs, given the long-term need to achieve and maintain our phosphorus TMDL, among other water quality goals. After 10 years, we've accomplished 20% of our reductions target, with just over 10 years remaining to reach the TMDL. A large majority of phosphorus load reductions achieved to date have come from the adoption of agricultural best management practices, as these are some of our most cost-effective reductions. Reductions from developed land through effective stormwater management for impervious surfaces are expected to contribute 22% of the total load reduction and currently have achieved only a fraction of the total load reduction. In total, 10% of all phosphorus pollution reduction is expected to come from runoff remediation for developed lands. 3-acre stormwater permitting targets the largest sources of phosphorus loading from already developed lands that have previously never been permitted for stormwater or were permitted to standards in place prior to the 2002 Stormwater Management Manual. Owners of these properties with 3 or more acres of impervious surface are currently required to receive a stormwater management permit by 2023 and begin construction to remediate phosphorus loading. There are 677 affected sites throughout Vermont, which includes residential developments, commercial properties, schools, and 4 fairgrounds. Thus far, 40% of 3-acre sites have received state funding to support permitting compliance, a total of nearly $60 million of permitting assistance. Of that, over $8 million have been awarded to private and municipal 3-acre sites. 3-acre assistance has largely been ARPA funded, and all ARPA funds are now fully encumbered. The 3-acre policy is an EPA-approved component of Vermont's TMDL and cannot simply be struck from statute. Instead, our committee considered how we might address issues that surfaced in testimony while preserving the intended purpose and beneficial contribution that 3-acre permitting makes to achieving our TMDL and improving Lake Champlain's water quality. There were several issues identified in testimony taken on H481. One was that more time is needed by property owners and municipalities to comply with the law. There were additionally legitimate concerns about the equity and how this permit impacts landowners that developed their land in an or under-regulated development era due to a range in the complexity of stormwater solutions on 3-acre parcels and expense to landowners. There's interest in adopting an alternative governance model for stormwater management and encouraging more municipal involvement in addressing stormwater runoff in order to more cost-effectively and equitably address stormwater management through regional planning and administration. And finally, we must ensure adequate long-term funding to support ongoing clean water programming. H481 addresses the issues in a few ways. It first offers more time to comply by extending the permitting deadline from 2023 to 2028. This allows us more time to accumulate funds in the Clean Water Fund so that we can provide permitting assistance to 3-acre site owners. In terms of funding, we've made 3 changes to current statute. First, H481 would empower municipalities to raise funds to pay for municipally managed stormwater systems by assessing municipal impact fees on users of the stormwater system. It also maintains an important source of state revenue that funds clean water projects by repealing the sunset of the clean water surcharge on the property transfer tax, and it extends grant funding opportunities for 3-acre permits and to municipalities that assume responsibility for stormwater management systems. And regarding governance, the H481 requires a study and recommendations by the Agency of Natural Resources and other stakeholders regarding whether to create regional stormwater utility districts to facilitate compliance with and implementation of water quality laws. These entities could, for example, manage overall regional stormwater permitting and engage in regional planning to ensure that load reduction from developed land is distributed more cost-effectively and equitably. I'll now do a section-by-section summary. Section 1 of the bill amends 10 VSA Section 1264, the section of the Clean Water Act on stormwater permitting, to make changes for permit requirements and permit timing. In 10 VSA 1264 D2, the permit exemptions for municipalities that assume full legal responsibility for a stormwater system are amended to allow municipalities to assess municipal impact fees after a majority vote of property owners subject to the fees. These fees must be proportional, related to cost and benefit to the individual property owner. In 10 VSA 12G, the general permit section requirements are amended to extend the permit deadline for 3-acre permit sites in the Lake Champlain watershed, Mem for Magog, I always trip over that one, deadline, watershed and other watersheds of other impaired waters from October 1, 2023 to October 1, 2028. For other watersheds, there is additional clarification that a permit will be required 5 years after a TMDL has been established for that watershed, or October 1st, 2038, whichever is sooner. Sections 2 through 5 amend the sunset of the clean water surcharge on the property transfer tax. Currently, there is a 0.22% surcharge on the value of property subject to the property transfer tax, less the first $200,000 in value of the property, and the first $250,000 in the event that the purchaser is receiving mortgage assistance through certain mortgage assistance programs. At present, the use of the clean water surcharge will change on July 1, 2027. At that time, the clean water surcharge would no longer be used to fund clean water projects and would be reduced to 0.04%, and those funds would be directed to VHCB trust fund in order to offset the cost of housing bonds. The surcharge was set to entirely sunset on July 1st, 2039. Section 2 of H481 repeals both the change in the clean water surcharge in 2027 and repeals the overall sunset of the surcharge. Section 3 through 5 complete the specific changes in session law that are required by these repeals. The language does continue to allow the first $1 million of revenue generated by the clean water surcharge to be allocated for offsetting the cost of housing bonds. Section 6 makes changes to the Developed Lands Implementation Grant Program and Municipal Stormwater Implementation Grant Program, which were both formerly named as grant programs. This section would strike the term grant. So amending 10 VSA sections 927 and 928. The Developed Lands Implementation provides assistance to anyone who needs a water quality related permit. The Municipal Stormwater Implementation Program provides assistance to any municipality required to obtain or seek coverage under the Municipal Roads General Permit, the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer Systems Permit, a permit for impervious surface of 3 acres or more, or a permit required by ANR to reduce the adverse impacts to water quality of a discharge or stormwater runoff. Section 6 also would give the Agency of Natural Resources authority to provide financing in alternative ways under both programs. Instead of just grants, ANR would have flexibility to provide alternative financing. This section also removes a requirement under both programs that assistance is only available in basins where a clean water service provider had met its annual goals or is making sufficient progress. The Developed Lands Program currently provides assistance for 3-acre permitting, and this section would also authorize the use of the program for all stormwater permitting required for properties that did not incorporate the requirements of the 2002 Stormwater Management Manual. Finally, Section 6 would allow the Municipal Stormwater Implementation Program to be available to a municipality to comply with a 3-acre permit for a residential subdivision when the municipality assumes full legal responsibility for the stormwater system of that subdivision. Section 7 amends 10 VSA 1389E, establishing the priorities by which the Clean Water Board allocates funds from the Clean Water Fund. In the subsection referring to the Municipal Stormwater Implementation Grant, the Clean Water Board would now be required to allocate at least $1 million annually to that program for the purposes of complying with 3-acre permitting. Section 8 is the appropriation section, and H481 is drafted would require the Clean Water Board to, in 2027, direct $5 million to the Municipal Stormwater Implementation Program for the purposes of complying with 3-acre permitting. Section 9 makes a 2-word change to 24 VSA 3616, which outlines the method of calculation for stormwater utility rates. At present, the stormwater rate is set based on the average area of impervious surface on residential property within the municipality. H481 would amend that to say that the rate may be set by using either the average or the median area of impervious surface on residential property within the municipality. Section 10 establishes the study committee on creation of regional stormwater utility districts. The committee will review the, quote, feasibility and benefit of creating stormwater utility districts to facilitate implementation and compliance with, unquote, the state's water quality laws. The study committee will review current statutory authority for the development of regional stormwater utility districts that are comprised of multiple municipalities, including identifying any potential disincentives or obstacles to forming such a utility. The study committee will propose an approach that the state could use for implementing a regional stormwater utility that would allow the utilities to assume liability and responsibility for compliance with the water quality laws, including how a utility could assume responsibility for securing the permitting of properties subject to the 3-acre stormwater permit and achieving the phosphorus reduction targets for the 3-acre stormwater permitted properties within the utility district. The study committee will review and recommend cost-effective and equitable approaches for regional level revenue raising and distribution of project funding for the purpose of stormwater controls to meet the TMDL. And finally, it'll propose how statute should be amended to implement any of the recommendations of the study committee, including stormwater management planning for purposes of overall regional phosphorus pollutant reductions. And of course, it'll estimate a cost to operate the regional stormwater utility districts. The study committee's report is due by January 15th of 2027. And finally, in section 11, H481 would take effect on July 1st, 2025. The House Committee on Environment took testimony from the Deputy Commissioner at the Department of Environmental Conservation at the Agency of Natural Resources, Program Manager at the Clean Water Initiative at DEC, Stormwater Program Manager at the Watershed Management Division of the DEC, the Clean Water Initiative Program Grant Supervisor in the Water Investment Division of the DEC, the Operational Section Supervisor of the Stormwater Program at the DEC, a Water Protection Advocate for the Lake Champlain Committee, President of the Vermont State Fair in Rutland, Director of Public Works for South Burlington, the President of the Green Mountain Water Environment Association and Public Works Assistant Director at the town of Williston, the second Vice President of GMWEA and Public Works Director at the town of Stowe, a lobbyist for the Vermont Fairs and Field Days Association, the owners of Hattica Stone Corporation, owners of Greenstone Slate Company, 2 concerned citizens, a municipal policy and advocacy specialist for VLCT, Deputy Chief Counsel, Office of Legislative Counsel. H481 was passed out of your House Committee on Environment with a vote of 9-0.
And now speaking for the Committee on Ways and Means, member from Burlington.
Madam Speaker, your Committee on Ways and Means received H481 because of its revenue implications for Vermont. The joint fiscal note can be found on the Joint Fiscal Office website under H481. You heard that 481 would allow municipalities that assume full legal responsibility for a stormwater system to assess municipal impact fees on system users and receive funding from the Clean Water Fund to help manage those systems. This could have an impact on state revenue. Here is why. Here's some background information for Section 1. The Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, also known as MS4, permits raise annual operating revenue for the state through a $10 per acre fee assessed on private and on municipal impervious surfaces within the permit's boundaries. Under MS4 permits, under this bill, municipal assumption of legal responsibility could result in foregone state revenue from privately owned impervious surfaces, which would otherwise have paid to the state annual operating fees, the $10 per acre fee I just mentioned. So that's the MS4. Second, there's the municipal road general permits, or MRGPs. These also generate annual operating revenue from fees ranging from $0 to $1,800. Those fees are based upon a permittee's municipal population and the total roads managed. Under the MRGP, municipal assumption of legal responsibility would prevent the Agency of Natural Resources from receiving annual operating fees from privately owned surfaces. This potential revenue loss could be offset partially by the environmental and operational benefits of increased municipal responsibility for stormwater systems. In summary, whether considering MS4 permits or MRGP permits, the Agency of Natural Resources indicates that a reliable dollar estimate of future revenues decreases cannot be generated. Why? Estimates would depend upon the extent to which municipalities assume full legal responsibilities for these systems in the future. One more wrinkle, Section 1 of H481 would extend the deadline from October 2023 to October 2028 for Lakes Memphremagog and Champlain, and from October 2033 to October 2038 for all other impervious surfaces, or not later than 5 years after a storm-specific waste load allocation has been established for that watershed, whichever occurs first. Now, ANR does not expect this provision to significantly affect state permit fee revenue. Next, sections 2 to 8 of H481. Act 64 of 2017 created the Clean Water Surcharge to the property transfer tax. That tax was 0.2% on the transfer value for all non-principal residences. It was 0.2% of the transfer value for principal residences, although it exempted residences under $100,000 in value from the tax. Act 181, as of October 1st, 2024, increased the transfer value exemption for principal residences from $100,000 to $200,000. Act 181 also increased, as of August 1st, 2024, the surcharge rate overall for all other property transfers to 0.22%. If we do nothing today in H481, the clean water surcharge will decrease to 0.04% in 2027, and it will be repealed entirely in 2039. This provision in H481 would extend the 0.22 rate indefinitely. The big picture is that in fiscal year 2024, the surcharge generated $8.2 million. According to JFO, the revenue impacts of Act 181 are not clear, but the Vermont Department of Taxes says that since August 1st, the surcharge has generated $6.9 million. That's in the first 8 months of fiscal year 25. The committee heard testimony from fiscal analyst, joint fiscal office, fiscal analyst, joint fiscal office, deputy commissioner, Department of Environmental Conservation, deputy chief counsel, Office of Legislative Counsel. The bill passed out of committee on a vote of 11-0-0. Madam Speaker, your Committee on Ways and Means recommends the bill ought to pass.
And now speaking for the Committee on Appropriations, member from Underhill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. H481 was referred to the Appropriations Committee because of appropriations referenced in Section 8. As a result of a discussion of H481, House Appropriations offers one instance of amendment related to Section 8. The amendment can be found on page 1026 of today's calendar. The amendment strikes Section 8 and replaces it with a new Section 8. The amendment removes the word direct and replaces it with recommend. The Clean Water Board cannot direct an appropriation from the fund to a program. The Clean Water Board recommends that an appropriation be made. The House Committee on Appropriations favorably recommends H 481 as amended by House Appropriations on a vote of 10-0-1, and we ask for the body's support. Thank you.
And now the member from Burlington. Straw vote.
I would like to refer back to the chair of my committee.
Madam Speaker, we actually weren't aware of the amendment.
Thank you. The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Appropriations? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have amended the bill. Now the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Member from Ferrisburg.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, Interim Speaker. I recognize that I'm standing between the members and their lunch, so I'm going to try to be as brief as possible. But I do feel, Madam Speaker, that as a member of the Environment Committee, I would like to offer some additional commentary on the bill H-148 because of the non-unanimous vote with which it came out of our committee. The 3-acre rule in the Clean Water Act of 10 VSA 1264C7 is a single paragraph in the Vermont statute. And as described by my fellow committee member reporting on the bill, it affects property owners of 3 or more collective impervious acres permitted before 2002 or never permitted. They must get a new stormwater permit and must remediate the runoff on their property at their own expense and usually on their own property. Based on testimony taken in the House Environment Committee, the 677 affected sites throughout Vermont, which include residential developments, commercial properties, schools, and 4 of our very popular fairgrounds, represents less than 4% of all properties in Vermont. This 3-acre mechanism accounts for only 0.8% of the total phosphorus reduction into Lake Champlain, in other words, less than 1%. Based on testified costs of these permitted projects, the average cost to prevent a single kilogram, which is 2.2 pounds, of phosphorus, aka dirt, from flowing into the lake is nearly $100,000 per kilogram. Thus, the total cost of this one paragraph in statute is approximately $250 million, and that is being borne by a select few Vermonters. So to those affected by this rule, it feels very arbitrary, it feels unfair, and it feels punitive. So one might be tempted to propose the simple answer, just as I did, which was to repeal the 3-acre rule. Unfortunately, the situation is complicated by the fact that the EPA owns the content of a binding agreement with Vermont that is the result, or was the result, of a long legal battle over the poor state of Vermont's waters and resulted in Act 64, also known as the Clean Water Act, in 2015. So, to address this overall problem, we isolated down to 2 root cause problems that we needed to resolve here and now. Namely, number 1, the inequity of the economic hardship that this rule places on a seemingly arbitrary few select Vermonters. And 2, the inefficiency of this rule, which consumes so much resources and accomplishes so little toward the desired end effect of cleaning up our lakes. H-481 does the 3 important things to address these 2 root cause problems. First, it extends the 3-acre rule permitting deadline to 2028 to give people more time to accumulate funds in the state more time to accumulate funds in the existing Clean Water Fund to help the affected people pay for their 3-acre remediation. Secondly, it identifies specific minimum dollar amounts and increases the priority of other funding mechanisms to be applied to the 3-acre rule sites so that the applicants don't have to bear the entire burden themselves. And thirdly, and I think more importantly, it creates a short-term, low-cost feasibility and implementation study to create stormwater management utility districts that would accomplish the original intent of the 3-acre rule, but in a much broader, more equitable, more efficient, and less costly manner. So, as you can imagine, there were some on our committee that felt that we didn't go far enough with H481, and I agree. The split vote in our committee is testimony to the impassioned debate that we had on this bill, and emphasize that this bill is not the final answer. My going in position, as I mentioned, was to repeal the 3-acre rule, but given the current legal agreement with the federal EPA, and importantly, with the opportunities that are offered by recent changes occurring within the EPA, a deeper study of stormwater legal and technical experts is needed to be able to address this problem and in an improved manner before we can legally proceed with a new plan and an agreement with the EPA. So, on the converse, not approving this bill leaves us where we currently are, which is with the 3-acre rule in place, with the permitting date behind us, and no plan to replace it with something better. So lastly, one final point, Madam Speaker, this bill serves, I believe, as a stark reminder to us here in the legislative body of the importance of understanding the cost impacts of a bill before we approve it. The 3-acre rule now in place is extraordinarily expensive and inefficient. Once in place, however, it's very difficult to remove it. I will be voting for Bill H481 as a step in the right direction towards ultimately replacing the 3-acre rule with a mechanism that is much more equitable and cost-effective. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? Member from Barrytown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm just going to go ahead and interrogate the presenter of the bill for a moment. I got a few questions.
You may. The member from Burlington is interrogated.
Madam Speaker, was there any discussion of making a prioritized list of projects for the implementation?
Madam Speaker, may I clarify a prioritized list of what kind of projects?
Within the 3-acre rule, which projects are contributing more phosphorus output than others in taking care of those 3-acre parcels first?
Madam Speaker, the data that we generally, that we referred to and heard in testimony estimated the average phosphorus reduction that we could expect from a 3-acre site. All 3-acre sites are covered by the Clean Water Act. So no, there was no discussion about prioritization of projects. There were questions asked about whether or not we would adopt testing for every site to determine the phosphorus reduction from that site, and we received testimony that that would be a very costly option.
Okay, and next, when there's major flooding events contributing to a large amount of phosphorus, how can we effectively calculate the impact of the 3-acre rule in a major flood year?
Madam Speaker, again, the overall impact of the 3-acre permitting rule is assessed on the basis of the average phosphorus reduction that is expected from the treatment of the impervious surface on that site.
Okay, and then in the fiscal note, is there any projection of the total statewide cost of the implementation of the 3-acre rule?
I would refer to my colleague in Ways and Means on this question.
Madam Speaker, may I have the question repeated?
Yeah, in the fiscal note, is there any projection of the total statewide cost for the implementation of the 3-acre rule?
No.
Okay, thank you, member, and thank you, member.
The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and third reading is ordered. Members, that completes the order of the day. Are there any announcements? Member from Poultney.
It's been a while, so I just want to remind the House Republicans that we will caucus immediately following the House adjournment in room 10.
Member from Essex Junction.
Yes, a reminder that House Dems will be caucusing 10 minutes after the floor in room 11.
Member from Burlington.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Reminder that House Progressives will be caucusing immediately after the floor in room 44.
Members of the House, please come to order. Are there any more announcements? Member from Springfield.
Madam Speaker, House Corrections and Institutions Committee will be meeting after you have a quick lunch after caucus. We need to vote out the capital bill.
Any more announcements? Member from Poultney, can you please offer us a motion to adjourn until Wednesday, March 26, 2025 at 1 p.m.?
Madam Speaker, I make a motion this body stand in adjournment until Wednesday, March 26, 2025 at 1 p.m.
The member for Poultney moves that we adjourn until Wednesday, March 26, 2025 at 1 p.m. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and this body stands in adjournment until tomorrow at 1 p.m.